So the great question confronting modern humanity is this. So here's the great question. Granted that the universe contains both persons, such as you and me, and impersonal structures, such as matter, motion, chance, time, space, and physical laws, which is fundamental? You know,
Mm.
which is of the primary or kind of first things.
Right. The
What is
most
it?
basic. Right.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So is the impersonal aspect of the universe grounded in the personal, or is it the other way around? The personal is grounded in the impersonal aspect. So kind of does matter arise from our personal nature and where we called it into existence, or does kind of matter flow and bounce into things and poof, all of a sudden Einstein is created and he can then look back and see all those particles bouncing around, and you have special and general relativity that comes about. So this big old circular thing that happens. Well, secular thought assumes the latter, that the impersonal gives ground to the personal, that persons are the products of matter, motion, chance, and so on. It holds that to explain a phenomenon in terms of personal intentions, like the house is here because someone built it to live in, is less than an ultimate explanation, less than fully explanatory. On this view, then, an ultimate explanation, a fully satisfying explanation, requires
Is on
the
the impersonal.
yeah, yeah, the ultimacy of the impersonal. The person built the house because the atoms in his brain moved about in a certain way. Very creative. Yeah, very awe-inspiring. The Sistine Chapel, we look at that and we go, wow, that's a lot of paint flecks. No, we talk about creativity. We talk about, man, digging in the soil, and out pops this bubbling crude, and out of it, he saves whales and allows people to read after 6 p.m., thus turning people into a better educated people because of the desire to tame nature, not just, well, the chemicals bounced around in his head to such an extent that he was forced by no other means than to carry out the will of digging up oil. So is that the necessary assumption that we see here? And of course,
Yeah. Right.
he's going to argue in the negative for that.
Right. Right. So again, personal versus impersonal. Modern secular thought says the fundamental nature of things, the basis of all things, is impersonal, right? And he's taking issue with that. He says, so let's return to scripture. What does scripture say? Well, he says the biblical writers do not hesitate to ascribe the events of the natural world directly to God. God waters the land, Psalm 65. He sends the lightning and the wind, Psalms 135. He spreads the snow, frost, and hail, and then sends his word to melt them, Psalms 147. So the biblical view of the nature of the natural world is intensely personalistic, he tells us. Natural events, non-personal, comes from a personal God. So personal is the fundamental nature of things.
All right. So he wants to then say, let us think through the consequences of both views, because from our basic beliefs, there are going to be repercussions that build down into kind of our actions. So if the impersonal is primary, then there's no consciousness, no wisdom, and no will in the ultimate origin of things. Right? The Big Bang just happened because nothing exploded, even though it was really dense, and it made everything. So it just all things were created from chaos. So what we call reason and value are just unintended accidental consequences of chance events. So why should we trust reason is the question. Is it only an accidental result of irrational happenings? Well, why would we want to trust our very existence to those things that we think just kind of is the result of an accident? And then okay, well, you believe that you're not able to step in front of a bus, but the other person is, and so it's just, well, uh, nature has carried it out so that the person that doesn't step out in front of buses, they continue to pass their DNA to their progeny, and hopefully more people will not step out in front of buses. And so then,
No step out in front of bus G.
yeah, that's that's in the in Jurassic Park somewhere. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's my big qualms with that type of social Darwinism is to explain actions by this evolutionary process is you really have to ascribe so many things to so many genes because of all the permutations that happen here. Okay, we can talk about being scared of quick movements, and we can talk about how we enjoy horror movies because of that. But we can't talk about like, well, okay, if there's high grass and there's movement in the grass, then we get slightly more scared than if there's just a gentle rustle because we can outrun the snake, but the mountain lion we can't. So there's got to be two different genes for both the mountain lion running away and the snake running away. It seems like your DNA sequences have to be a lot more if you're going to ascribe all these certain things to your ancestral DNA. All right. So moral value, I'm sorry, moral virtue will, in the end, be unrewarded because of this personal being ascribed to the kind of these accidental consequences and chance. You're going to be unrewarded. Friendship, love, and beauty are all of no important ultimate consequences, for they are reducible to blind, uncaring processes. Something's nice because your brain functions just happen to fluctuate when you see a pretty picture, but there's no benefit that you can ascribe to a person for their genuineness. You can say, "Oh wow, you gave me a feeling," but that's all it is. It's just an end result, which you can supplement with drugs. So why don't we just be a society that takes way more drugs rather than paint more pictures? And then
Yeah.
how do you describe what a first year student who's drawing a portrait does to someone like Rembrandt, drawing during the Baroque period? You could have no distinction between those two uh, qualities other than the way that your brain has interacted with it. And so you can talk about your endorphins fluctuating at 0.9 rather than 0.6 depending on who you're looking at. So those things like being a good friend or loving your wife or loving your children, and then how do you distinguish between those types of love or that type of friendship? It's hard to do other than by um, measuring out your brain chemicals, and then your brain chemicals might be different than another person's brain chemicals. So are you a better friend than your friend because the brain chemicals are of different value? Is that how we describe like best friends? Like, oh, I'm able to percolate at for 5 seconds with this person, but only for 3. So this person's more my friend than the other person. It's a difficult process there. Yeah.
Right. So he's making this contrast between personal and impersonal here, and he's looking at the consequences of both positions as ultimate, and of course the consequences of the impersonal, as as we've been spelling out here, as he suggests here, is that there's no consciousness and wisdom and that sort of thing. But so what about the other side, right? What about if the personal is primary? Well, he says, then the world was made according to a rational plan. It's not an accident. It can be understood, this plan, by rational minds. So not only is the world made by a rational plan, rational minds can understand it. Because of that, friendships and love are not only profound human experiences, but fundamental ingredients, he tells us, of the whole world order. This relational nature of things, because it's personal, if indeed that's the case. There is someone who wants there to be friendships, who wants there to be love. All the wonderful things that we find in personality, intelligence, compassion, creativity, love, justice are not some ethereal data, doomed to be snuffed out in the cosmic calamity at the end of everything. But rather, these aspects are what are permanent and most ultimate, he tells us. They are what the universe really is all about. Moral goodness is part of the great design of the universe. It's not just some accident that we stumble into. Right? If personality is absolute, there is one who cares about what we do, who approves of it or disapproves of what we do, who judges our conduct. Indeed, personal is ultimate. So he's making this contrast then between the impersonal and the personal.